This is Joe Petrelli. I'm here with Rick Lindsey, and I'm going to be doing an interview for the Demotech Difference. And we're going to be recording it for some podcasts and other things like that, so we're going to have some fun. And we'll get started if you're ready, Rick.
Sure.
You're always ready, it's my guess.
Ready to go.
All right. Thank you for agreeing to share your time and your thoughts with the readers of the Demotech Difference. And I think from my perspective, this is going to be a lot of fun. All right. You've learned most every aspect of the insurance industry by being on the front lines of doing it. What aspect of your training do you think you've enjoyed the most, and why?
Well, I guess it's the relationships with people that I've done business with for 30, 40 years. And back in the day when I met them, they were in the land of the misfit toys, which is what I call, insureds when they get canceled or declined. And the standard industry says, they're misfit toys. And I think at that time, before that, somebody wrote their insurance and took their money. And then all of a sudden they end up canceled and in the land of the misfit toys. And that's when people kind of get reality. And you can have a good, honest relationship with them. And so, most of those people I still insure. And, I'm getting older. They're getting older. And, you're dealing with new owners of companies or the kids of the original owner. And I think the trend is to go back to buying cheap insurance. Like, it's just insurance. We're not going to have a claim. And so insureds need to, realize that when you're old like me, stuff happens. And if you don't have a plan for it, life's going to be a lot different than if you have a plan. So the relationships is the best part and the biggest wild card. And if you don't have those relationships, the lawyers are like linebackers in a football game. They can shoot the gaps. You can't take somebody's money and it's like you can't be half pregnant, right? If I insure your building down here in Florida, I have to give you flood. And now legally I can, where before you had to buy FEMA flood primary. So we've been arguing about flood and wind for 50 years, making lawyers rich and creating, kind of a confusion for insurance people and insurance buyers. So, do it right, do the whole job, make happy customers, and bench the lawyers. And, that's hopefully what, the relationships I've had for a long time have proven. That, it's kind of like war. You need people who are going to stand and fight with you and do the right thing. And that feels good when everybody does their job. And as I talked about earlier, it's kind of like going to the Super Bowl and being on the 1-yard line. And you can win, but you got to have a plan and a play. And in most cases, you've practiced it. Everybody's comfortable. Or you show up like a bunch of little leaguers playing in the Super Bowl and you can't execute and you lose. That's not fun at all. I've been there, so I know the difference.
Tell us a little bit about how you built Prime Insurance.
I was an agent and broker, became an MGA, had a A-rated company that gave me their pen, and I wrote outfitters and guides, helicopter ski guides, rafting, and my family did roofers and other classes of business, and we managed the claims as a TPA, and I think we've always had that desire to, do the right thing and fight frivolous lawsuits. I think we were seen as stupid and idiots. You can't fight that. This is when you should settle. So early on, I wanted to start an insurance company, and I started trying to raise $20 million to form a syndicate on the Illinois Insurance Exchange, because that was the easiest way to get in 40 plus states, and you really need to be in all 50 if you want to do a national program like I've always done. And, it became obvious over time that you spend all your time trying to talk companies into doing what you want. And then on the claim side, you're always trying to talk lawyers into doing what you want, the right thing, in my opinion. And, as an agent or broker, an employee of somebody else, you can't tell people what to do. So, owning the insurance company was the solution to me. Now, I was a total failure, always have been a total failure at raising money, right? You go to these big investment houses and brokers, and I've been run through the mill and hired investment bankers, and every time they bring you a crappy deal. And, at that point, you've announced you're going to raise money, and then the offers come in, and it's not what you were thinking it was going to be. And the investment bankers looked at me and said, well, you got to take it. And I was like, no, I don't have to do a crappy deal. I'll do it, some other way. So eventually, there was a prime syndicate that was on the Illinois Insurance Exchange, and a group of the best guys I've ever known in my life. I met by accident. They were in trouble. Prime Syndicate was formed with $20 million, and there was another syndicate called First Mercury, and they basically just ran Prime on the side of First Mercury and reinsured it. And so Prime had lost $18 million of the 20, and they had $2 million left. And Pat DeLacy, who works at Raymond James, he's an insurance guy. He was on the board of UPC, and again, he's always kind of thought I was crazy and I did stuff too far outside of the box. So we've been friends, but he's never actually been useful to me, except he introduced me to the Prime board. So I describe it as, I'm not sure he did me a favor. He put me on a sinking ship. I had to buy Jerome Shaw's 5% of ownership out. So I owned 5%. And took over. But, Duke Chapman, he was former general counsel of the New York Stock Exchange. Bill Croft ran Illinois Tool Works. Mr. Stern was chairman emeritus of Smith Barney. And, they were all just invested in this deal, and they didn't want the battle scar of having invested in a company and it gone bankrupt. So, they were great partners, supported me, and we tried to save the Illinois Insurance Exchange because I actually think the Lloyd's marketplace is good, but you have to be more than just capital. You actually have to be underwriters and craft policies for each individual business, and we tend to do a cookie cutter thing. So our approach, again, is, everybody says, oh, your policies are, they're not ISO. And I'm like, yeah, I think they're actually better than ISO because we have our own wording. If you give me wording that you want, and we want to enhance it for a better partnership, that's, what we've always done. But insurance producers and agents tend to want the ISO G65 form. And if you say, well, we don't have that, we have something similar, they see it as being worse. One of the big things is defense outside or defense inside with, liability lawsuits. And I had an agent the other day, telling me that our policies were crappy because it had defense inside. And if you go self-insured, do you give yourself defense outside? No. You put the money in your captive, and that, you don't get a free defense outside ticket. And the only people who benefit from defense outside is the plaintiff's lawyers and the defense lawyers, because they have no reins on their spending. So, all of this, as I got, closer and closer to having an insurance company, I was pretty sure that this business has been evolved in the wrong direction where it's just stupid. It doesn't make common sense. And so all of these things, as you live it, as an agent, a broker, managing a claim, going through lawsuits, it all, is visible right in front of you to do it the right way. Now, that means buyers and agents actually have to understand it too, but most of them don't want to. What they want is the old days where they used to get insurance cheap and they didn't get sued a lot, or they didn't have claims. Like in Florida with hurricanes, there was 11 years with no storms. You know, to me, common sense would say those companies should have a big pile of money after 11 years of no storms so that when a storm does come, they can actually perform. But you have to have a plan. And most people's plan is, I'm not going to have a claim. I really don't need insurance. And that's a bad plan. That's where an insurance company should, not offer you cheap insurance. And, again, I think that, 8 years ago, I never wrote commercial auto, right? Then the commercial auto market went hard and everybody became land of the misfit toyers. And that's where now the opportunities exist to actually provide solutions. Now it's California wildfires and Florida. So, being the company with an A rating, with the ability to execute in all 50 states, and being in the AM Best book. I have an AM Best book right here, right? And I wanted to be in all 50 states, A rated, and as you know, I am. But, AM Best to me is not what people think it is, because in 2008, AIG and the Hartford were bankrupt, and they never got downgraded. So to me, rating agencies are kind of like the canary in the mine, right, to buyers and agents and brokers, because they look at the book, and if you're A-rated, they see something there. And it is, a requirement. Now, I'll tell you, before I was A-rated, got my A rating, I never paid for a front. I had a deal with Lloyd's where I'd issue their paper. Again, when you issue Lloyd's paper, they get to make the decisions. So I could see that I was losing value because they would make the legal decisions on what claims to fight and the relationship with the insured and the lawyers. So, again, I think for whatever reason, I was lucky enough many, many years ago to see that having my own insurance company was kind of key to fully being able to execute at, what I think is a high level. I think we can do better. Nobody's perfect. But, I do know now, and I have a lot more confidence, that common sense is what we've deployed here. And it's because we do all the tasks. We don't outsource anything.
You focused on what the industry might call hard-to-place risks. What attracted you to that aspect of insurance that others seem to avoid?
In anything where people need a solution, they're more realistic, and, either they're a really good partner because of the need for a solution, or, they're not as good a partner as they want to represent, and you learn that through experience, right? If some lawyer sues you frivolously, and I recall saying to one guy, he says, well, the lawyer says we should settle this case because we could lose. I'm like, well, is the lawyer risking any of his money? I said, I'm risking my own money, and you're risking your own business. So at some point, we actually have to make the decision and stop listening to the lawyers. And I think homeowners in Florida, if you polled them, I always say, we make unhappy customers. That's why people go to lawyers. Well, where do you go when a lawyer makes you unhappy? There is no place to go. I've tried to hire lawyers to sue lawyers. They don't do that. So, again, we're at a disadvantage. But if you could poll people who were involved in an auto accident down here or had a homeowner's claim, and they would be honest with you about how long it took, how much time was sucked out of their life going to a chiropractor or being deposed or doing all this stuff, and then they get a crappy result and they only get so much money, most plaintiffs would say they didn't end up where they thought they were going to. I, at one point, had the distinction of having the biggest nuclear verdict in Florida, $412 million. And when it hit the newspapers, all my reinsurers and my other insurance companies that own stock in Prime called me panicked. And it's like they don't know what that means. right? They think we're in trouble. I said, what are you talking about? I settled it for $991,000 right after. And guess what? We offered him the $1 million policy before he went to court. We didn't go to court because our insured wouldn't cooperate. We wanted him to. That was a case we could have defended and again settled for far less than the $1 million because he wasn't at fault. It was a frivolous lawsuit. But when you don't show up, they win. It's like the Super Bowl again, right? The other team shows up, you don't show up, it's over. So, again, these lawyers, they want to create headlines. And so, $412 million, that scares Lloyds. That scares people who, insurance companies hire to be claims managers. And so, did you hear that I had a 412? Doesn't matter. I know you only got paid $991,000 and you could have got $1 million. So, you have to know the game. It's almost like when we were kids, and you started playing a new game. I played football. My dad put me in soccer. I didn't know the rules. You're going to be taken advantage of when you don't know the rules. And so, a lot of this, again, it just comes back to common sense, but you have to be interested enough to actually understand the game and the rules and how to execute, and it's a very slow system. Most lawsuits take 3 to 5 years.
A little bit of history. What was your first job as a teenager?
I worked in old-fashioned equipment, where they rented chainsaws and pumps and lawnmowers, and so I'd wash the equipment. And
What'd you learn from that?
Well, again, I apply it to insurance, You got to make sure that equipment's serviced right and documented. And, do you want to rent chainsaws? That might be a little bit dangerous. And if you do, you got to kind of plan ahead for the bad day when somebody cuts off a limb or, wounds themselves. What's the play? How are we going to manage that? And, again, I think it's all proactive. Insurance is reactive. It's like, don't call them. Don't go see him at the hospital, which is exactly what you would do if you didn't have insurance. If you ran a little store like that and you'd know the guy, you'd go to the hospital, make sure he was okay, and stay in touch with him. And, if he said, you owe me $1 million, you'd say, well, go, if I had it, maybe I'd give it to you, but I don't have it. With insurance, it's like, yeah, I got insurance, sue me, and maybe they'll pay you. I'm not sure people actually think about it, the way that they should, but...
Are there people in your career that you would characterize as mentors that you learned something from?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's been many. Roger Day was the former insurance commissioner in Utah when I was a young man. He was the youngest insurance commissioner ever appointed in the United States. I think he was 28 years old. As governors changed, he moved on, and he's passed away now, but he was a great guy. Obviously, my dad taught me a lot. He didn't want to be a risk taker, and then the guys I talked about before on my board, Duke Chapman and Bill Croft and Mr. Teach, Gordon Teach, and they were a great group of Chicago, New York guys.
You made it clear. I think hard to place risks sound like, they could be created by a lack of understanding, stereotypical insurance industry behavior, maybe an unwillingness of the industry to learn and study what they're calling hard to place. What have you seen in these hard to place risks that make them not so hard to place?
It's having a partnership and a plan, where you're confident you can execute. So, insureds need to be a lot more focused on, what they're buying and how it's going to work. Right?
In terms of corporate goals, how do you measure the success of Prime's implementation of its goals and objectives? How do you measure that corporately?
I mean, first off, my goal originally was I wanted to be $100 million. So I'm far north of that, and the profitability and the number of customers and the diversification is way more than it exceeded my goals. But now I think the goals are even bigger, right? I think the market and the condition means that people and the market is starving for real solutions. It's not going to come easy because there's a lot of people who don't want to live in reality. They just want cheap insurance, and they don't want to deal with doing the tough job. Outsourcing, I think, is again, it's more expensive for us to do everything in house, but it's not more expensive for us to do everything in house because you're in control, and you don't blame anybody else. And if you're making mistakes, you can correct them sooner.
As you've built Prime over the years and decades here, which of your personal strengths, attributes, which of them have been tested and leveraged to help you build what you have today?
Just sticking to the fundamentals and doing the right thing. It's scary, right? I guess the most, again, Katrina was, really, really a big event. I had 1,200 claims in one night, and I had like $2 million in surplus. So it would have been easy to, panic and not do the right thing. But as I told you earlier, Prime's the only insurance company that took a case to jury trial in Gulfport, Mississippi. And every insurance company, the Insurance Company Association, every lawyer told me I was going to lose. They're like, do you understand the juries are homeowners and they hate us, right? And what they didn't give enough weight to was the facts of the case. And I knew the facts of the case. Now, I still have people that say I'm stupid because I spent $700,000 and it was a $50,000 claim. Because we did the right thing, they got a bad faith lawyer and sued us for $5 million. And, again, winning that case, people say, well, you didn't win. You spent all that money. What they don't know is I had 100 cases that just went away after that because they knew they couldn't bluff us that we would do the right thing. But, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars based on principle can get pretty scary. And, but if I would have done what everybody else does, we would be like everybody else. So, by sticking to, what was right and wrong, and again, I think it's that easy. We do what's right. And I tell insurers, it's like, well, what if we lose? I'm like, well, if we start losing cases we should win, we really don't have a business anyway. Wouldn't you want to know that sooner rather than later? So, the chicken is always going to come home to roost. You can buy insurance and think somebody else, there's a magic leprechaun out there that's going to do special math. There is no magic leprechaun. There is no special math. And, I actually think there's enough money in the pool being spent on insurance and lawyers and deductibles. And, when you look at all of the pieces that money flows out of this bucket, if we just make better decisions, there's enough money to make happy customers. Mm-hmm. We're just letting the system abuse us and suck the money out of the wrong hole into the wrong pockets. And, we can change it. We just have to make better decisions.
Well, let me ask you this. You've been doing this for decades. What skill might you have today that you wish you would have had decades ago?
Well, I think that, I have great people, my staff, Brent Sigmiller and JD, my IT guy, and I'm really not a smart guy, but I have smart guys around me. So I wish I was a smarter guy, I guess I would say. Math and, writing and all of that stuff. And, again, I get attacked a lot because I don't punctuate right or say things right or maybe I misspell a word here or there. And there's people who really get upset with that. They like to beat me up for it. So I know again, I just think I have common sense. I think that is the most, underused tool. You go get educated, and smarter people than you teach you stuff, and I guess you throw common sense out the window. And if you can combine the two, I have no education, no formal education. I went to an insurance school for 90 days in Oberlin, Ohio, but all of my stuff is on the job training. I graduated from high school and started working in an MGA, so I do understand, all the different ways that we can partner with wholesalers, MGAs, retailers, but we all have to make better decisions and, focus on making happy customers and unhappy lawyers, and we'll all be a lot more successful.
You've been quite successful. Let me ask, in terms of whether it's property casualty, life, health, whatever it might be, your thoughts on younger people and why they should consider insurance as a exciting, maybe even a fulfilling career?
Same reason I think it's a fun, exciting career. Obviously, you can do anything, because I did it. It's not like there's anything holding you back. You don't need to go get a degree. If you have one, great, right? You should be able to parlay that into a great career. But, I just think most people need to work hard. That's how you get lucky. That's how you learn. People now want a job. And when people approach me about jobs, I say, look, I got tons of opportunity, but I don't need another, I don't need to create another job for you. What do you want to do? Because I don't want to talk you into it. All right. If you want to help manage claims, if you want to be an underwriter, if you want to do both and learn like I did, tell me what you want to do, and I can help, do that. Again, I'll hire people in any department and pay them for 4 years. Most people pay to go to college for 4 years, right? And they're paying. And then they come out of college and they still don't have a plan. So, the real key is, making a commitment to yourself. And, what got it for me was my family. When I started having kids, it was like, I got to be responsible here, and I got to have a focus. And, I've done the same thing, same path, same idea, strategy for 40 years. And when I see my friends and other people, most people have changed careers a lot, and they'll reach out to me and say, hey, I'm working at the Home Depot, I'd really like to come work where you have a job. And I'm like, okay, let's get a plan. I'm happy to give anybody an opportunity, but I can't give people jobs, right? There isn't a job where you just come sit there and you don't even know how to process it. It'd take me 4 years to teach you that. Or you can come work, help us process stuff, get around the company and learn on the job training, I guess is what I'm saying, right? And you get paid for it. So, it is an industry that obviously has, bad connotations and good connotations. With me and with anybody that I think, does it the right way, it's a very noble job to provide people, protection and insurance when you do it right. But you have to show up. You have to feel the responsibility. You should tell them in some cases, cheap is not the goal here. We want to make sure that we have, the proper coverage in place, and we understand what a claim looks like and what you want. It's almost like being married, right? You have to have expectations aligned so that you can make them happy in the long run when challenges hit you. And unfortunately, we're selling a commodity these days, And InsurTech, I think, is a false hope. I really do not believe that any of these boxes, any of this InsurTech, is better than human intelligence and a relationship with people.
Do you see any insurance issues today that might not have existed 10, 15 years, 20 years ago? Any sort of the problems and challenges that we might see in the insurance business that we didn't have before?
You know, my focus is that as an industry, we need to step up and do the right thing and provide real solutions. And I think there's a tendency, big insurance companies want to create new products like, you know, home identity or identity theft insurance or home title insurance, which to me are all kind of fake insurance products. You know, when we were kids, there was Gerber baby life insurance, right? You could buy your baby $5,000 life insurance policy, guaranteed issue. Well, I think it's really funny that today, if you're between 55 and 85, you can buy that same policy, no medical exam, no nothing. You know, why are they selling that? To me, that doesn't make sense. If I was 55 or 60, I'd say, well, why am I paying the same thing as an 85-year-old guy? Right? And it's about the benefit. It's about the claim. It's about the end, not the sales job. So, you know, identity theft, I mean, what's the real risk there? So you're getting homeowners to take premium out of their pocket and buy new products that to me are disingenuous when we need homeowners insurance in Florida. You know, we need real solutions and we seem to not want to do it. I mean, who's pulled out of California and Florida homeowners? Pretty much everybody. You know, but all of this other pet health insurance is the other one that kills me. So they'll overpay for pet health insurance, but they want cheap homeowners insurance. You know, homeowners is most people's biggest asset. And, you know, to not have a real plan, and even the wealthy people, you know, these people who manage family offices and, you know, have a strategic wealth plan, well, when the homes you own around the country, if you're rich enough to own those homes, have no flood, have no earthquake, how's that going to affect your estate when what can happen does happen? There's no plan there. There are so many holes and gaps in the insurance, you know, approach of most people that there's a ton of opportunity for us to focus on real solutions. So.
I noticed in one of your posts on LinkedIn, you talked about your Go team on claims. Mm-hmm. What inspired that idea? How do you recruit people for that? How did you train those people? I mean, tell me a little bit about the Go team.
Again, it started with Katrina. You know, I think I had, 13 employees at the time. You know, Doug Murray, who's now retired, he's got a place down here and he moved back to Iowa. He called me the other day. And him and Mark Fisher, who's one of my lawyers, they came down to Katrina, landed in Pensacola, rented a car, tied the cans on the top of the car, and drove in. And you weren't supposed to. You know, you're supposed to. And the reason I had the Go team formed, and we still have it today, and it's in-house employees. We give them the opportunity to, you know, say they'll do it. It's the same thing with you know, answering calls 24 hours a day on claims. Most people outsource it, right? And I'm like, that's a waste of time, right? So somebody's going to answer our phone call, and then they're going to send us a message. How does that extra step help anybody, right? So I ask people, do you want to answer calls after hours? And if you do, that's valuable to me. And so we have a phone tree, and you know, on every department, I'm on the bottom, because as the owner of the company, I want to know when you have a claim and my people don't answer. I want to answer, right? That's what I would expect. Again, as a consumer, I pay you. You know, don't tell me you're closed over the weekend. You know, if I send you a claim or I send you an email, don't send me an automatic response that says I'm out of the office for a week on vacation. I don't think anybody really gives a shit that you're on vacation. They called you because they need something, right? And so, again, the Go team, I don't force anybody to do it. It's valuable to me. It's valuable to the clients. And so they volunteer to be on that team. And then when, what can happen does happen, I want my own team in there. Katrina, we took pictures of every house, right? So when we were in court and trying to manage claims, other people had hired a TPA who went out there and measured and did stuff and sent them a report. We had actual pictures. We were there. And if you've underwritten it, I'm not sure you need to measure the house again. I'm not sure a lot of the stuff in a TPA report does you any good. I know who it does help, the plaintiff's lawyers. Because when they mismeasure or make mistakes, guess who they blame? Everybody. And they claim, and then they try and allege that you were trying to underpay your claims. So, again, doing tasks in a bubble and not having a peripheral vision on what that does or opens up, or it delays stuff, it creates gaps for a linebacker to shoot in there. So the Go team is, we go, we do it ourselves. We, most importantly, you got to start writing checks, right? Most people are waiting for checks still. They don't have, anything. I'm sure some of them have some, but the people I talk to have not been paid yet. And, to me, that's just sad. We should show up, we should start paying the undisputed amounts, because that's the law. And again, in Katrina, we learned a lot, proved a lot, and so we just evolve it and, keep going on that. And my best people like doing it. They like getting out there and meeting the insureds, and, in most cases, the insureds are happy. I mean, you're actually with the company. You're not a hired gun that, is at some point going to spit out a report that I'll either like or hate. It's almost like a mortgage appraisal, right? When they show up and you need an appraisal to get the loan and all that stuff. It's very uncomfortable when you're not dealing with the real decision makers, and I think that's our Go team. We put our people right there, and we want to do the right thing, and I think that's the right thing to do.
I know you're a licensed private rotorcraft pilot. Why don't you tell us what attracted you to helicopters and some of your other hobbies and toys?
Well, the helicopters, I insure the helicopter ski guides in the U.S. We've done that since 1985. So when I was young, I'd go skiing with them, and obviously you'd go up to the top of the mountain in the helicopter, and so that's been a passion of mine ever since then. When I was before we had the insurance company, I probably did $5 million in premium or something. So I really didn't have the wherewithal to learn to fly or have a helicopter. And back then, it was really hard to learn to fly helicopters. Most people learned in the military because there weren't a lot of helicopters. Now there's helicopters everywhere. Robinson helicopters. They've made more helicopters than anybody else. They're a trainer helicopter, and so there are a lot of those out there, and so it's made it a lot more affordable, more like fixed wing, where helicopters were out of reach for me and most people, and now it's a lot better. But yeah, I enjoy flying the helicopter. I have one in Utah and one down here in Florida, and I got asked to fly the boat races, so that's kind of the coolest thing I do as an old guy.
On the serious side of the helicopter, I understand you've been fairly active in search and rescue efforts as well as fundraisers. Is there a particular search, rescue, or fundraiser that jumps out at you as a memorable one?
Well, we do the one down here for the Wounded Warriors, and Freedom Finds Cigars. Again, I just met good people. As far as, search and rescue, we've just flown around and looked for people. Never really, I get calls and somebody's lost or something, and we've actually never spotted anybody, but we've helped out when asked to. And, it's, again, it's not something I look to make money on. But, as a private pilot, you can't charge, but I'm happy to help anybody any way I can with, and otherwise you're just kind of flying around in circles. Chasing boats is kind of fun, but, if you can help local people, either raise money or, we do a lot of golf ball events where they want to drop the golf ball, and most of those are wounded warriors or, people who have served the country. So I do think, it's important to remember how we all got here and the freedoms that we enjoy. And that's my biggest fear, is that, we're kind of losing that as a country, and, we don't know the history, and it's like we want to be like everybody else. And, I think that's the wrong, we want to be like Americans and continue to be leaders in the world, not become like other unnamed countries.
Close out with a kind of a lightning round of personal preferences, if you don't mind. Your favorite meal?
Oh, Minnow here in Naples is our favorite restaurant. They have a good Italian, and we like their meatballs.
Favorite snack?
Oh, I would have to say like hot tamales.
Your favorite movie?
Oh, I think Pulp Fiction is probably a good one.
Cat or dog person?
I'm a dog person. Again, I'm not any dog person. I think hunting dogs, I'm not, I guess I move around too fast to have, a house dog or a cat, because they're more work than you want. You got to always take care of them. And so we have Labrador retrievers that we go pheasant hunting with and bird hunting with. So those have always been my fave. I appreciate you and Demotech, and I think we're A-rated by Demotech, right?
A double prime.
Yeah. So anyway, any way that we can form partnerships with you or any of, the people that you work with, whether it's other companies, I don't front. I don't want to front, but I'll partner with them. Just like, when I was not rated A, I partnered with Lloyd's and I shared risk with them. I didn't pay for the front. That was the other option, and I think that's the option most people take is, pay for a front and then I'll have the A rating. I think it's always better to find a partner and not pay an outside party for outsourcing.